Hey, everybody, thank you for joining us yet for another episode or podcast of Growing Up PK, past, present, and future. I'm here with my brothers Justin and Julian, and with our special guest today, the Right Reverend Phi Nu Pi to the day we die, the Reverend Jason Sims.
Yes, sir.
So we're glad to have him with us on this particular episode. Look, we want to jump right into to this episode. We're excited about the feedback from the other episodes and what you all have said. So we're just trying to continue to keep some things going and keep the vibe rolling. So our guest again is Jason Sims. I've known him. We've known him for years. Our families have grown up together. So if anybody knows anything about growing up PK, it's this man right here. He really knows. Him and his sisters about growing up PK. They have a wonderful ministry in Kansas City, Kansas. So we're just proud and thankful that you came to join us on the podcast, man. So we appreciate it. So tell us a little bit about what it's like, what it was like. You know, I'm not gonna tell your age now, but you know what it was like growing up PK.
Well, you know, I feel like I've had a positive experience, you know, growing up PK. You gonna be in the play, you know, you gonna sing the solo, you know. If any youth program needs an MC, you gonna do it, and you know, all of those things have prepared me. I watch your father, Bishop Vaughn, you know, so eloquent, polished. My dad has tried to do that over the years, and you know, just watching the excellence and the standard that's been set, you know, it spills over into your business world. It spills over into your education. That when you get up, there's a standard that you're supposed to meet, and you're supposed to be prepared. You know, this is the good old Church of God in Christ, and you're supposed to be prepared at all times. So it definitely prepared me for a lot of things that I'm dealing with right now.
Were there any things like let's go back a little bit in time, teenage years, middle school, high school? We ain't got to talk about college just yet.
Yes, sir.
But just middle school, high school. Was there anything like maybe situations that just jump out at you that were either stepping stones, turning points, or something that made you be like, well, I wish I could go back maybe and do that again or do that over?
Well, I mean, it's always things that you can reflect on and you say, I could do better. But, you know, what I really think about is, as a PK, you're held to a higher standard than other people's kids. I can remember just being in the basement of a church and just hearing people just dog my parents. I mean, dog them. They didn't know I was there. And, you know, go home and tell them. And my dad said one thing, Now, I know as an adult now they had conversation after that, but, you know, it prepared me for things that you're going to have opposition. You're going to have things that come against you. And if I could go back, you know, I would try to prepare myself even more for now. You know, I think I took for granted all the opportunities that we had in church, and you know, I'm just goofing off. I'm chasing girls and all this stuff, and I could have been really truly preparing myself as a teenager. That's why I really am on my kids now about preparing themselves, you know, when they have the opportunities.
So hearing things like that, you know, you mentioned the basement experience, and we kind of talked about that before, at least I did in my own story. Hearing people dog your parents out and say this, what type of impact did that have on you? I know you went home, your dad just kind of said, but for you, did that change your perspective on church people, members, anything like that?
Yeah, it hardened me a bit. You know, it hardened me. You know, actually, to take the story to the next level, you see the next Sunday, your parents praying for folks, giving folks money, and you know what you told them. And that just builds your own character, you know, your own character to be able to have opposition, but you have a calling, and it's not dependent on those people. And but it does harden you a bit. You know, I've heard pretty much everything. You see a lot, and it develops somewhat of a callous to be able to handle those things in the future. You know, when people talk about me, if that ever happens, I got 40 years of experience, which is, you know, not really a big deal. So it does prepare you. It does prepare you.
I think sometimes, you know, everybody says hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
So now we're able to say, it prepared me, it did this. But when you're 15 and you're and these things are happening. I get it. You're hearing these comments and you're hearing this stuff, and you go back, hey, Dad, they said this, and you don't feel like there's any resolve because now, we brought up last session we had, this person's up preaching who we just told you we had the situation with.
Right.
Now you're giving their kids my clothes, and you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So you're always dealing with this dynamic of, and I understand now, of course, now that we're older, we understand with the church, when they sing songs like, you'll understand it better, by and by.
Right.
But sometimes those things really, I know, for us, a lot, some stuff is just, at the time, you're like, I don't get it. I don't, why do they get away with everything, And then they got the outside thinking that we the ones getting away with bloody murder,
Yeah, I wasn't as saved as y'all are. So,
Maybe us too. But I don't know about that one.
That one right there.
That had you beat.
when I was coming up, I wasn't, I really believe you was going to be out there. If you're going to be here, be here.
You was going to achieve it. Everything.
Right. So, I was going to shit in every field of human endeavor. So, I was a bit of a fighter. So, my parents had to reel me in. No, this is not your fight. This is, so I was more of the outspoken one. My dad's real humble, soft-spoken guy. I'm not that guy. So when I would tell him things, I'm looking at the sons and I'm looking at the aunties and uncles, and I'm the one rolling eyes and pushing folks in the back. So they had to coach me into where I am now. And let God fight the battles. You can't fight it. You can't fight spiritual battles in the natural. And of course, you don't understand that as a teenager, but I'm trying to prepare my kids to understand that a lot of things are spiritual battles and not natural battles, and you certainly don't have to fight your own battles for your friends.
So let me jump into the college, because I'm interested to hear that as well, because going off, and I dealt with this too, that you're going into a new arena. A lot of different stuff comes at you. You're no longer under the umbrella of you just go to church and go home. Now you decide whatever you want to do, you do that. So how was that experience for you going off to college?
My first 6 months of college was very difficult because I believe, and I talk to all PKs, if you're listening, there's a strategic attack on your life. And if you've grown up, you have kids, you have to prepare your kids for a strategic demonic attack on their life, and it can be to bring down the ministry, to bring down your parents, or to destroy what the legacies should be. And so my first 6 months, I didn't attend church at all. That covering was gone. So you find yourself, the things that you would never do at home, you find yourself dabbling in the things that you never have done. And I found myself kind of in the pit. I'm eating with pigs, and just as the story goes, and you come to yourself and you say, who are you? And I remember my dad saying, I don't recognize you. And it kind of churned something in me, still getting good grades, still going to class, still getting, doing the achievement part of it, but from a who are you character-wise? And this is not what we put in you. And it took about 6 months for me to click, and then I really kind of accepted my call early in my college years. Me and my cousin Jonathan, we were
Thunder and Lightning.
Thunder and Lightning ministry. And we were modeling our parents Thunder and Lightning.
Thunder and Lightning.
We were all over KU's campus and preaching, and it was quite the. And then at the early stage of ministry, you realize, man, just because you accepted your call, it's a lot more to it. It's a lot more to it. So, you get away from your folks, you get away from that covering, you get away from the prayers every night that you don't even know that are happening, and then the devil takes that opportunity to try to take you out, literally.
I had a similar. Well, I had a few awakening moments in college. K-State guy, sorry, that's KU,
that's
but
all right.
it's all good there. But my father actually, and funny story, but comical. It was a Monday night, and I think they had just had prayer. They were having Monday night prayer, and he said in his spirit while he was praying, the Lord told him to drive all the way to K-State. And if I wasn't doing some stuff that night, and he popped up, and he's like, where do you stay at again? What's name? I'm like, thinking he's about to send me something, knock on the door, boom. But, at that point, and honest to God truth, I knew that he was real because of what I knew I was about to get into, and for him to say that he was praying and God told him to get on the road and drive, and I remember being nervous, 2.5 hours and he and I was like, okay, you going back home? It's like, nah, I'm just gonna stay in your living room and pray all night. I'm like, you serious? Is that what we doing? But he's but man, it's like I'm calling people, that don't. But he stayed there and prayed, and although I didn't, that didn't necessarily keep me from doing some other, but it also let me know that that is some real stuff that my father's real. God is real, and I mean, for him to do that kind of shocked me. That was kind of one of my turning points. But it takes a while. I mean, it takes a few some time, but turned around as well. So I hear that.
I had a knock on my door, but it didn't change. We won't get into that tonight.
Nothing changed with that knock?
It didn't change.
So did you feel pressure because I know you're assistant pastor now, but did you feel pressure going up to walk in those footsteps? Was at a certain point in time you said, well, I just want to do my own thing, I don't want to go that route, and I know you said the calling and it brought you back, but did you feel pressure growing up in church to do that?
I still do.
Yeah,
I still do, because the standard is always being set. There's not many fathers, and to see our fathers be true fathers, not just to us, but to to so many people. I still feel the pressure of not walking in his shoes because I want to forge my own shoes, but just the shoes be that effective. And coming up, I always felt pressure of, okay, I'm going to get up and do a sax solo. Am I going to represent Sims right? Am I going to represent when I stand up and talk? And I'm at school, I'm playing football. Anything that we were doing, I just wanted to be representing my parents' name right. And that's it. I don't think that ever goes away. I don't think that pressure, and I appreciate it actually, because it definitely refines you and makes you more polished.
So what do you think that, since you brought it up, you said sports and then you said music. Now I remember the music part.
Yes, sir.
Because I remember at Eisenhower you beat me out of first chair in saxophone, and I remember because you was like back then. I mean you couldn't. Everybody in the school was like, dude, Jason Sims the baddest. I mean he would literally pull. I'm not lying, y'all. We'd be outside. It was an island outside, a brick island outside of Eisenhower Middle School, and he would pull his saxophone out and then play outside. Everybody would be like, "Oh man, he just serenading everybody." So I mean, what with the music side of things, how does that? Did you feel like I had to play something? 'Cause I know, like middle school, you just pick up an instrument. I'm gonna play this, but then you start playing other instruments. So was that
if you walk in a church, you play drums, man. Everybody play drums. Everybody play drums. But now you start on the bongos, you go to drums. But yeah, I mean, my mom playing the piano in the front room. You hear I'm a Cofield as well, so you got all the singers around. Uncle Pa had a big influence. So you growing up, and all you see is music. All you see is musicians. It's kind of just in your blood. What are you gonna play? It wasn't if you're gonna play or do music. It's what are you gonna do? And I took that, and I'm a big math guy. I'm an engineer, so music did complement that. So all of the jazz progressions, all of the things, chord modal things, it kind of fed that part of my brain as well. And I needed something to stay out of trouble. So the practice, staying focused on something. And so that the music was a big part. It still is a big part of my life. I'm real sensitive to worship. And I always think my wife is a great singer, and I'm always sensitive to the flow of music and how that breaks up the fallow ground as it relates to ministry. So. But the music. Oh my,
that's your thing.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Well, I want to know how you juggle, because you preach on Sundays as well.
Yeah.
And you're the lead musician, the MD. How you juggle all that, and you do some sound too.
It's all about seasons. My season for playing in church is coming to an end, and I'm very grateful that I've taken young ones under me. They're ready. They're playing. I'm really just facilitating at this point, but it's seasons. My dad says God will release you from one thing to focus on another, and for a long time, preaching was secondary. Music was, we're going to do the tracks, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to get a new board. All that was my focus. But now the preach word, the administration of the church is really my focus, and God is releasing me from that passion of needing to play,
Right.
needing to do that. So I really appreciate that, because it has conflicted me over the years, but responsibility and timing and seasons, I do think they play a big part in it. I'm just waiting for your preaching season. You know,
I preach at a jazz festival.
So let me ask you this, because from a musical standpoint,
Yes, sir.
Was there ever a time being a PK again? Growing up, you're doing things because it's expected of you.
Right,
You know, so you really have, this is what you do.
Right.
Whether that's play drums, whether that's usher, whatever the case may be, whatever's needed, that's who you're going to be. Was there ever a time for you that, because when we're younger, it's fun.
yeah.
You're playing drums, keys, whatever. It's just, you're learning, you're fun. And then sometimes it gets to this place where you be like, dang.
Yeah.
You know, did it ever hit a point for you like, do I have to do this again? Or it kind of like when you're dealing, then you got to deal with people.
Right.
So then their expectation is somewhere out the roof, and they expect you to be your Uncle Paul. They expect you to be a Keith Newton.
Right.
And you're like, those pastors are totally different, you know. So was there ever a point where you felt like, you know what, I just kind of want to chill out on this, or conflicted even more so of how people view me now that I'm progressing in succession to another area? Do you really look at me as a musician, or do you respect me as a preacher? Yeah.
And even past a preacher as a pastor. Sunday, I'm playing Sunday, and I have to preach. And you want to step away. We have a music playing. We have multiple musicians, but my wife has a certain sound she wants to hear. And I'm preaching on the organ. I'm preaching on the keys, and I'm thinking the next point of my message, and it definitely conflicts as it relates to the people. People have an expectation of a certain sound of music, and you can bring up whoever you want. You can bring in whoever you want. If they don't hear that sound, then you should be on the organ, but they don't remember when I started. You know, there was a progression for me, you know, to get to a certain place. So it does conflict. I have been able to release that and say, God's going to take care of music. I have a responsibility. And it has to be internal, because there's always going to be people, no matter how great the anointing is on your life, they're going to want you to sing a song. I want you to sing. I want you to sing. And you may have the preach anointing, or you may not want to sing. And it has,
don't want it.
yeah, it has to be within you to say, this is what God is calling me to do now, and go from there.
So how do you feel about that, Julian, about the whole music and progression to preaching thing and all that, with the progressions of your life?
Number one, preaching is not on my it's not on my menu, so I ain't worried about that. But I mean, I think it's a great thing. No, I do think it's different than 10, 15, 20 years ago. If you can remember, even at Miracle Temple, at our own churches, you had every instrument 5, 6 boys deep.
Yeah.
It's like the
Everybody.
pickup game.
Yeah, you're right.
Nowadays, you can't find
You
can't find a sub or none. So I think that's what's made it even difficult. You know, in your case, in my case, you know, just everywhere I'm seeing. So, you know, I don't know what we can do about that, but you know.
I agree. I mean, the dedication of the musician. I mean, when we came up, everybody had a distinct band. EC had a band, Mount Carmel had a band. Everybody had a band. Everybody's band is similar. You know, everybody plays for everybody now. It's not true dedication to ministries for the most part, and that's why it's important that we pass this on. I love what you're doing with your sons on the singing side and the plants. It's you have to have sons and daughters of the church to truly have the vision of the church, and that's what really makes a difference.
So with that being said, because you're not an only child, so what was you know, of course we're brothers, so it's just 3 of us.
Yes.
But you had sisters.
I had 2 sisters.
So I mean, I don't want you to go too far because they're not here.
Yeah.
But how was that dealing with sibling type
Yeah.
things, being a PK?
Yeah.
Because it's different. I think the whole purpose, one of our purposes with these sessions, is that it is a difference.
Yeah.
When you're the pit pastor's
Yes.
kid.
Yes.
I mean, the lens you're looked at is different through, you know. So there is a difference. It's a difference how your house is ran. There's a difference the interactions you'll have in your house. Somebody else's kid can go home and talk about everybody in the church, but you better not do it because your dad gonna be like, no, we don't do that in this house.
Right.
But they talking about us. And little Johnny just told me that his daddy said you can't preach anyway. And they only here for a season.
Right.
That's the thing people used to use back in the day.
Right.
So what was that interaction like, and even with your sisters?
Man, sisters, it's a totally different dynamic. I mean, seriously, because if you think about Kojic from a historical perspective, most of the religious stuff was really on women. And so my sisters had a different experience. Matter of fact, when my sisters were here, they say I got away with bloody murder. But
Julian.
and
He's lying.
but to be very honest, a lot of my refinement has come from my sisters. I have older and younger, so I have the accountability of a big brother to my younger sister, and then my older sister really has been a mentor to me in a lot of different areas. So I love the dynamic of having two sisters because they're both nurturing to me. But I think if you talk to them, they had a completely different experience as a PK, specifically in the Old Town Church coming up. I mean, who's wearing the skirts to the picnics and
The jean skirts.
And just the whole concept of Jay can stay out is this later. He can go to the dances, but we don't go to the dances and this and this. Having all of the different religious.
So you went to
things.
dances?
Man. As a boy, I was. They did a little different with me, but the girls, they were. It wasn't not normal. I mean, the girls really didn't do a whole bunch that, especially my older sister, that we got a chance to do. So.
So that's a dynamic that is very interesting because I think it is different for males and versus females, although it was all of us boys.
Yeah.
But just to see some of the interactions of the others, shout out to Mother Lisa and Mother Angie as well. Those are his wonderful siblings.
That's it.
And then your sister's there working in ministry now,
Yes.
church admin, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
As we had to when we did my grandmother's service again. Thank you, to Bishop Sims. Thank you all for hosting us for that homegoing celebration. But when we did it there, she handled all the business and made sure things were taken care of. So that was great to see because that was our first interaction with her in that forum, to see how she handled business. And I think church does, being another point of being a PK, prepares you to deal with people when you're older. Because of course you don't think when you're 15, I'm gonna need this when I'm 40.
Right.
And almost that callous is almost good because it makes you harder and it makes you not be susceptible to people's remarks, their words, their thoughts, and their actions. So I think it helps really prepare us for where we are in life and where we're going to go because all of us, and you're an engineer and doing your thing. Justin does his thing with business, HR, all that. Julian's doing his thing with music. I mean, he's all over the country.
He is.
And you can't do those type of things without having some kind of preparation that teaches you, one, how to deal with people, and then two, how to interact with people who don't like you. But you still need this business to go. You need this business to happen.
And the business of ministry, I mean, you have it. People think of administration, but truly, when you're on the job 40 hours at the church, you're really in ministry all the time because even in business, you're constantly providing support and ministry to people all the time. So I really applaud Angela and anybody who works full time in a ministry because you're not only doing your secular job, but you're also doing ministry every day. So it's pretty
And you never really get to rest from it.
You don't.
Even as a PK,
you go
it's there
from the
all the
job
time.
to prayer, and you go from that to choir rehearsal. You go down to the meeting,
And then when you go home, you got to talk about everything that happened in all of those other sessions. So you
Yes.
never really.
Yes.
And I think sometimes people don't understand that part. You don't really get away from it.
Right.
So even growing up, it is a part of you.
Yes.
It's a part of your life. It's a part of who you are. And I know that there are a lot of PKs who are disgruntled with ministry, disgruntled even with their parents sometimes.
Right.
But there are some of us out here who are not mad at the church, not mad at our parents, but we have taken our blows and we've taken our punches, but through the grace of God and through great leadership and being able to see fathers, as you
Yes,
said,
yes.
who are, and now our fathers are, when we were coming up, the fathers were Dad Cofield.
Yes, yeah.
You know, my grandfather,
Bishop McDonald.
Bishop McDonald, Dad Thurston.
yeah.
You know, so now that we're our age now, your dad's a father to my dad. You know, so
yeah.
it's the succession is happening now. We have children who we have to raise to be
Bridge
that,
the gap,
that next age. So in the last few minutes, and again, thank you so much for joining us today. But in the last few minutes we have, just if there's any remarks, anything you want to share. 'Cause we got PKs watching. We got people who are not PKs. We got people who love the church, people who don't love the church, people who tired of this church, people who want to find another church. You know. So is there anything you would say to anybody before we close out?
Well, I mean, I would say directly to PKs, if you have a strained relationship, I believe that there's a blessing in the support of God in your parents. Some people can see in their parents that there's flaws, and I think as humans, you may see flaws in your folks, but I would encourage you to mend the relationship from a spiritual perspective with the God in your parents, and pray for them if there's any other flaws. Also, PKs that are on the streets that have walked away from the church. If it's not your parents' church, find a church and mend your relationship back with the Lord. I want to say to Justin that I've been tremendously encouraged of what you're doing in the Bridging the Gap, because I've watched your dad bridge the gap with your grandfather, and what we have to do is keep our churches relevant in branding and ministry focus and all of those things. So if you're a PK, your job is to really support your parents. Don't talk about the old church, bring the new church to them. And I see that happening all across this table. And y'all my brothers, man. I've grown up with you guys. I want to keep the relationship. This is excellent. Keep it going. Me and my sisters talked about doing this just about a couple of years ago. That's why I tagged them. I was like, man, they lead us to it. So if y'all see the Sims version, we're gonna have the Vines on our version anytime. And you guys are my bros, man. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Julian, any last?
No, that's all, folks.
Just,
No. Good.
all right. I'll say on top of what Rev said, that for you that are watching, don't be so stuck on what you don't like that you throw out the good stuff too. Yeah. So even what you don't like about maybe your parents, about the way they lead or the way, there's still some good things in there. So don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's okay to throw the bathwater out, but there's some substance left, and you're where you are today because somebody influenced you, because somebody helped you, because somebody was that bridge, as the old church would say, over troubled water, that helped you get to where you are. So seek God, see what the direction for your life is, get connected, and then find some others. Like, you know, we grew up together, so this is easy. I have brothers. You may be an only child. Find you somebody. Yeah. Hook up with somebody that understands that little struggle. You could be 15 on YouTube or on Facebook watching this, 15, 16 years old. Hook up with some other young people who are strong enough, or that are at least where you are, that y'all can be strong for each other, to say that you don't have to give in, you don't have to give up, you don't have to run away, you don't have to do harm to yourself, you don't have to feel like you're better off not being in the world. No, you are valuable. And the enemy will always fight you at 20 and 19 and 18 and 17 because he knows what potential you have at 40. He's not going to fight you because of where you are right now. He always fights you because he sees your potential. He fight me at 19 and 20 because he knew what I could become at 40. He'll fight you in college because he knows what you're supposed to become later on in your years. So we're not here saying we're perfect, but we are here saying that we're transparent enough to share our story and our testimonies with you. So God bless you. We'll see you next time.